Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Adams here again with the Strive Youth Conference. I hope you're all doing well and ready to get into part 2 of Be the First. If you were with me last time, you'll remember that we talked a lot about stereotypes associated with young people. We talked about how smoking has declined a lot over the last couple of decades and that less than 1% of middle school students currently smoke cigarettes. That's a great thing because smoking kills a lot of people. And we learned that unfortunately we've entered a vaping epidemic. We also learned that it took over 2,000 years of people smoking before we realized how bad it is for us. And that we don't know the long-term effects of vaping because they've only been around for about 10 years. We also learned that there has been some vaping illnesses and even deaths in our state and in our country. So we're going to continue, and we're going to start by talking about the main thing that's in vapes, and that is nicotine. Now, Juul is the most popular used vape among middle school students and high school students, and one Juul pod has the same amount of nicotine as an entire pack of cigarettes, which is about 20 cigarettes. And that's a whole lot of nicotine, especially for a young person. Well, who cares? Well, nicotine is not something that's great for us. It's highly addictive, and it has some side effects like increased heart rate and increased blood pressure, and it has really powerful effects on our developing brains. So if you have something to write with, I want you to take a guess on your piece of paper or just in your head at what age you think your brain is fully developed. Okay, hopefully you have a guess in mind. And if you wrote down or thought of 25, you'll be correct. A lot of people think that it's younger, like 18 or 21, but your brain is actually not fully developed until your mid-20s. And there are really important parts of your brain that are still developing, like how you learn and pay attention, your mood, your impulses, and how you make decisions. So right now, my brain or your mom or dad's brain works a lot differently than yours. And it doesn't mean that our brains are better or that we're smarter than you. It just means that we make decisions a little bit differently. I'll give you an example. If I asked all of you today, how many of you would go skydiving? If I asked you, my guess is that a lot of you would say yes, because it sounds like fun. But if I asked you to go ask your parents or your grandparents if they would go skydiving, my guess is that a lot more of them would say no. And that's because when young people make decisions, they're thinking about what sounds like fun, what will feel good. And an adult is thinking about those long-term consequences. What happens if my parachute doesn't go off? Or what if something happens to me? So we make decisions a little bit differently when we're at younger and older ages. And at your age, before your brain's fully developed, you're at a greater risk for addiction. Most addictions start before the age of 18. So while your brain is still developing, it puts you at a higher risk. Here's how an addiction starts. Let's say you are using a vape and you take that hit and it feels really good. Maybe it helps you feel more relaxed, more alert, happier. Maybe you use it to calm some stress or anxiety that you're having, and it helps. That might be the case, but eventually that nicotine wears off, and it actually only takes about 30 minutes before you start to feel withdrawal symptoms. And those symptoms will feel just the opposite of what you felt before. Maybe you'll feel more irritable, more tired, less alert, less able to focus, more anxious, more stressed, even more depressed. And the only way for you to feel normal is to keep hitting that vape and feeling better again. The chemicals in your brain are all messed up because nicotine has interfered with its ability to do its job. And so again, the only way to feel normal is to keep using, and it goes into a circle until you're addicted. Now, this is how most addictions start, but it happens really quickly with nicotine because it's a really addictive drug. In fact, the only drugs more addictive than nicotine are heroin and cocaine. So just using nicotine a few times can lead to an addiction. When we talk about the word addiction, we throw it around pretty casually when we talk about it, especially right now that we're all home. I think we talk about it in regards to shows we like to binge watch, we're addicted to, our phones, social media, TikTok, Fortnite, anything that we do a lot that we really enjoy. Sometimes we associate it with an addiction, and that's just a joke. But what's really important for us to remember is that addiction is not a joke. It's not something that we should take lightly because it affects people very deeply and personally. I want you to take a moment and think about if you know anyone in your life at all that's impacted by any kind of addiction. It could be drugs, alcohol, gambling, tobacco. Maybe it's not someone you know in your own life. Maybe it's a friend's mom or a neighbor, an aunt or an uncle. Think about if you know someone, and chances are you do, because addiction is very common. Now I'll share my story because it's only fair. Here's a picture of me and my dad. That's me and that's my dad, just so we're all clear. And my dad struggled for many years with an addiction to cigarettes. My dad smoked from the age of 15 until he was 55 when he quit. So about how long has my dad been smoking for at home? That's right, 40 years my dad's been smoking. And that might seem like a long time, but it's actually pretty common for a guy my dad's age. And for 40 years and most of my life, my dad's life was interrupted by smoking. He was a slave to his addiction and a slave to cigarettes. It was always interrupting things that we were doing, vacations we had, dinners we were having, because he needed to go outside and smoke. And he did this several times a day. I used to get so upset as a child and even as an adult because he wouldn't quit, even when I asked him so very nicely. I thought that it was something he was choosing to do, even though I asked him not to. But the fact of the matter is that addiction is a disease and not a choice. It's not something he was choosing to do. It was something that he needed to do because his brain needed nicotine in order to feel okay. And that same thing that happened to my dad with cigarettes is what's happening to people now with vapes. Youth are leaving class 4, 5, 6 times a day to vape in the bathrooms. They're vaping in class, in the hallway, in the locker rooms, in the parking lots. And there are youth in our state who sleep with vapes under their pillows because they can't get through the night without it. It's impacting everything we do. It's taken the privacy away from our bathrooms at school and turning the bathroom into the jewel room, and it's become a really big problem. Now, I want to offer you a analogy here. So let's pretend like I'm going to offer everyone in the room today and pretend we're in a big room all together. I'm going to offer everyone a cookie. And everyone's going to eat this cookie, and unfortunately, 50% of the people who eat it are going to die. And the people who didn't die, it didn't look so good for them because a lot of them got cancer. And those who didn't die and didn't get cancer, some of them will have heart attacks, some of them will have strokes, and a lot of their teeth will rot. Most of these people who ate this cookie are just not going to be very healthy. So it doesn't seem like the best idea, right? Well, good news is there's another cookie that I can offer you. In this cookie, you can eat it, but we don't really know what's going to happen if you do. We're not quite sure if it will give you cancer or if it will kill you, but we're not quite sure that it won't. It hasn't been around for long enough for us to know how bad it is for our bodies, but it has been linked to some hospitalizations and deaths in our state and in our country. So you can try this one instead if you think it's a better option. Now, I think we can all agree that given the choice between the two, the one on the right seems a little bit less risky, but it doesn't mean that it's a safer option or better for us in any way. And the same can be said for smoking and vaping. A lot of us know that smoking is bad. We think it's gross and we would never touch it. But when we think about vapes, it's made to look really cool. And about 24% of people in the room, if I offered you one today, would try it. It's made to look safer and better than smoking, but in reality, we don't know for sure that it's better for us. So I'll stop there. There's a lot more left to go, but I will pause and ask you to tune in to part 3 of Be the First. Hope you have a great rest of your day.